But we put together very quickly a presentation with some thoughts about what we're going to say. We're going to divide up some of our comments amongst us, and we'll leave time also for you to interact and actually raise comments as well. So, the four of us are, there's Allan YUEN, Dr. Allan YUEN's here, and then Cecilia Chen there, and then I'm Bob Fox, and then there is Brant. So that's the four of us. Okay, so some of the key things that we've been looking at today is looking at case studies, looking at changing learning environments, and there have been lots of different types of learning environments for us to look at. The library showing us some of the different kind of learning commons environments, both formal and informal spaces that we're trying to create in the new campus as well as in the existing campus too. We looked at, from the Hong Kong PolyU, their ideas of how they're going to deal with large numbers of students in a single class, and they introduced some ideas of linked classrooms. We also had a session on virtual worlds and augmented reality, and several on mobile learning, which is definitely a trend. If we look at the overall trends here in technology adoption and higher education over the next 5 years, we're looking at things like this: an increase in M-learning mobility. Okay, thank you. M-learning mobility, accessibility, and the use of personal learning environments. So people actually creating their own learning environments for which they can work with. An increase in collaborative work through new technologies, definitely, particularly with the new curriculum. Cloud-based computing is certainly becoming increasingly significant. And digital media literacy for our students and, of course, for our teachers. We need to help our teachers in professional development in those areas. Hand over to Brant.
All right, so this slide was talking about HKU adopting Moodle. That's a decision that's been made pretty recently. And the idea that this effect should have on the pedagogy here is supporting a more constructivist pedagogy and approach to teaching, hopefully more student-centered, highly interactive. A problem with most teachers, they're still in transmissive style of transmission, not just lecturing. So the idea, as a lot of the speakers have talked about, is getting the students solving problems instead of listening to lectures, doing online discussions as a formative activity, is one of my particular areas of interest, obviously wikis and blogs, group activities like mind maps and brainstorms. Another benefit of Moodle is it allows creation of new activities. You can design and develop a new Moodle plugin to fit a specific need, and then add that to your school LMS. So that's a feature that I hope to build on in Moodle that is not offered in Blackboard. And finally, we can talk about how an LMS can provide the infrastructure to support an effective teaching environment when you have one-to-one computers. Many teachers are exposed to that environment and really don't make good, effective use of a one-to-one environment. So hopefully the LMS can allow us to build on the technology in an effective way.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm actually from CETL, which is a teaching and learning center in Hong Kong U. I'm just going to go back a little bit and talk about the Hong Kong U eLearning at the moment. The university's strategic plan, right, basically wants us to provide a rich and diverse form of learning experience for our students. And one way to do it is basically through a virtual learning environment that complements and enhances experiential and face-to-face mode of learning. With that, right, Dr. Bob Fox there and Allan actually did a TDG project. They've actually found out a lot of good practice using technology in education at Hong Kong U. Loads of them, different faculty, many, more than 50s, right? And these are one of the best ones. And but yet we haven't had much e-learning strategic direction. And on top of that is, in 2009, QAC did an audit with us, and they recommend us to have a e-learning strategy and also to review our current system, because our current system is WebCT Vista 8, which is going to be phasing out because Blackboard bought it and it's phasing out. So what we did is then we did a review, and The Pro-Vice Chancellor Teaching and Learning, Professor Amy Choi, she actually organized and led a group, the eLearning brainstorming group. And within that, Professor Lancy Law also kind of is a subgroup within it and lead a working group. And we basically try to evaluate what type of learning management system do we need in Hong Kong U, given our culture and the way, we've been using e-learning, and also the framework, the support framework we need. So we did an awful lot. We did faculty survey, LMS evaluation between Blackboard and Moodle, and a focus group with different university institutions in Hong Kong and abroad, and also look at their framework. And we have got some of the recommendations. We actually got 7 recommendations. I'm just going to fly through these, right? And you'll probably hear more and more soon, because we are starting to build the whole thing up. And we are going to upgrade the technology for teaching in the main campus. Now, we all know that the 3 nice faculty are moving to the Centennial campus, which have fantastic technology over there. And the ones who are left behind here, we don't want to be left alone. They have actually got budget allocated for this side of the campus to make all the teaching facilities very nice as well. And on top of that, they're going to set up a central committee to actually monitor these, the efficiency and effectiveness of these technology on the campus and in halls and residency as well. We're going to have essentially support LMS, okay, and it's likely Moodle. And then on top of that is we are going to have an e-learning specialist group, right, to set up under the new pedagogical support unit. And then we're going to have a pedagogical support unit. At the moment, right, I know education is, apart from education, I could say, that have some pedagogical IT in education by Nancy, Bob, Allan, Daniel. We actually don't have much learning and teaching e-learning. The web CD is supported by the computer center, right, but there's no pedagogical way. So our plan is actually set up a pedagogical unit under CETL, and then we have about 5 people. Maybe we can go to the next one. Well, this is the ideal world, right? Ideal world is I'm the teacher, the academic. We will have a technical support, a teaching and learning support, and a faculty member. So whenever I want anything done, right, I just call my techie guy and my pedagogy instruction designer and do my PowerPoint or whatever I want to do in e-learning for me. But unfortunately, budget-wise, we have a problem, right? So what we have actually optimized a framework is, the next one, is this. We're basically going to have a decentralized support unit, right? So each faculty, which we have 10 faculty, will have a faculty instructional designer, okay? And then we're also going to have a centralized support unit. We're going to have a teaching e-learning pedagogy unit, and also, there's going to be about 5 or 6 people in it, and then it's going to be supporting from the IT service center, which is the computer center, going to support the back end. And the IT service is already building up their end of the e-learning, and basically they're starting to hire, because we're going to have migration problem, and likely we're going to hold web CD for 1 more year. So that's basically the current trend at the moment, what we are planning to do. I can pass it back to Allan.
This is a slide. Oh, okay. Now, Bob asked me to have 3 or 5 minutes, to talk about lessons that we learned. But before that, I will talk about that. Here it says just like it's a commercial time anyway. So now, if you look at this, is an e-journal called Information Technology and Educational Change. So then, if you have any good idea, paper, article, please submit all your paper to this journal, right? Bob is the editor, and I'm also serve as a editorial board member in this journal. Now, I just want to talk about something about that the lessons that I learned, in particular in today's program. Now, in the morning, then I heard a lot of discussion about change. It seems to go back to Obama's campaign. change. Lots of things may change. We talked about the change of environment, learning space, lots of things. But when we talk about change, how do we really deal with this change? So there's so many ways that we talk about it. It seems that I learned there is only one way to deal with this change. Some years ago when education started using ICT, then we said, okay, look, ICT is more like magic. So how to play this kind of magic, and do we have only a silver bullet to do this? But then today we find there's many ways to deal with this kind of change. So then we'll find good practices from many different institutions, from many different approach, looking at virtual learning, looking at using mobile learning, looking at using different way, using that. So this is the way that we deal with the change, because we have to open our mind and then look at that, and so then we have using different ways. But then I learned another thing that in the discussion that though we have a lot of different ways, the impact on learning is still a concern. So what is the impact on learning? So it seems that we need still a lack of very vigorous kind of evaluation of this different kind of practice. So usually in this conference, there will be a lot of presentation. They're very fascinating, good idea, good practices. But then if you look at the evaluation part, then we will find this is not very clear. Before I came to this room, I just finished a review of some conference paper for international conference. But I found all these papers, and there's good ideas, but the evaluation part is very weak anyway. But so that's why I think we need to look at that. I mean, if we put time, put resource on that, we participate in multi-medium projects, but that the project without a very vigorous way of evaluation. So then this is another thing that I learned from all this discussion. I think we should pay some attention on that. In the afternoon session, I learned a lot from Professor Lauria's presentation, and it's after, because I didn't have an opportunity to ask questions, so just after that I have a quick chat with her outside, because you asked the second question, you got the last question. Anyway, you picked my opportunity anyway. So then I have some discussion with her. In particular, we discussed about the pedagogical patterns. I think this is a very fascinating idea, in particular looking at that. Now, regardless that there will be lots of discussion or controversial about, in philosophical discussion, the form and content, because there are a lot of philosophical discussion about whether form and content, they are really close together, and then they stick together. You can't separate it. Or another discussion will be, okay, you can separate it, and then you can change the content, keep the generic form, and then you will find a pattern and that sort of thing. And then we had lots of this discussion about. Now, regardless of all this kind of thing, I think this is a very good way for us not to just to capture the pattern of pedagogy, but rather than it is a very useful way to make that kind of sharing be vivid and visible. Because when we're talking about the sharing culture and that sort of thing, then it's difficult to say, look, I mean, we should have some kind of culture of using ICT. Bob and I, we collect about a lot of cases. I mean, in some of those cases, we find some faculty will just, in the cases they describe, some colleagues, they yes, I think this is a good idea, but I'm not going to use it anyway. But the report will be, okay, that's lack of a kind of culture like that. I mean, some sharing, I mean, they share with, okay, this is a good practice in TEL, technology enhanced learning. But then someone said, no, I don't want to use it, and then that is the thing. But I think the way of using pedagogical patterns is a way to give you a very clear idea that, look, we can really quantify something, in a very vivid way. It's got, as I mentioned, we had lots of debate about that, about, whether, format. But then, if you look at this, then it really gives us a way out, to really put the sharing culture in a more concrete way. Rather than we just say, hey, look, we should have a culture. But now we can, looking at your and his, way of teaching and pedagogy, then we can really put it down, and then we can share, and then quantify certain element. So I think this is a good thing that I really learned, and it's worth for further exploration. And also, I think that will be another thing about the cultural differences. Whether that kind of Western way of, that pedagogy patterns will be different from Chinese way. Do we have a China teacher or Chinese way of pedagogic form like that? I mean, we have some discussion on it, but that is another thing that we can explore. In particular, here in Hong Kong, we have a very mixed way of things where we have Western approach. And we have Chinese, way. I mean, we have Chinese professors, and they have different way of looking at this. Okay, so this is the about time. It's okay. Now, I suppose that we should have some more, discussion from the floor, and this is what we want. Right? Okay. Sorry about that. I take more than 5 minutes.
Moment time. Any questions?
Well, I was actually listening to Allan there, right? I think you're right, the advance of technology is increasing daily. I mean, what we have 3 years ago and what we have now is unbelievable. But it's how we actually adapt this into learning and teaching, isn't it? Like, I mean, we were talking out there with Nick and Diana, we were saying about augmented reality. It's great, it's cool, but how are we going to use that in teaching and learning? I mean, 3D virtualization, Second Life, all those are really good, but how, and I think it's really up to us, educators, how we can, sort that out, it's like, using technology.
I could speak towards that. In my 6311 e-learning class, we trained the students how to build their own Moodle courses. And as an experiment, we do 2 of the sessions remotely each term. And if they're done asynchronously using Moodle, the students can interact, but they don't have a sense of presence. And that's something we tried last year to change by bringing in Second Life. Diane was a member of this recent course. Raise your hand, Diane. And we ran Second Life in order to give the students a sense of being in the same environment, working together, real time. Now this puts a load on me. Now I have to actually be there and show up. But I think the students enjoyed the novelty, certainly. The problem was they didn't have much training, and the initial environment was quite unfamiliar. Novelty was quite high, and the students didn't know how to interact. It was difficult for them. So the next session I ran in a replica lecture hall, basically, as was discussed in one of the speaker's presentations, and the students reacted much more positively. They knew what to do. They didn't have to spend so much time trying to get their avatar to sit properly. They could just sit there right away and react. So I taught in voice, and they gave feedback in typed chat. And several speakers have remarked how when in Hong Kong, when the teacher asked the classroom, "What do you guys think of that?" Silence. Right?
Just like now.
That's right. But in Second Life, they can type in their chat, and about half the class would respond within a few seconds. And they don't have to take the floor and speak. They can all type at the same time, and they can all see the comments, and I could pick and choose which ones to respond to. So the affordance of the technology can actually improve the interactivity real time. So I think that's one of the things we should try to explore as we move forward into an LMS like Moodle, and on it from there over the years into other areas such as Second Life and virtual environments.
Great. Well, thanks very much. this is your last opportunity, or forever hold your peace? Right.
I'll just look at the title. I just realized actually, when I listened to the presentation, everyone's talking about their cases for using technology to support learning. I just wondering, like we were doing something that some in a way that some are similar to each other. Will there in the future like a bigger sized communities that include like every cases for technology enhanced learning? It seems that technology is available for everyone, but when we talk about communities, we always talk about our local communities, or in this particular context, we need such a communities for technology enhanced learning. And if we kind of think about beyond the context, it doesn't make sense. But then technology exists without boundaries. So how can we solve the problem between the particular context and the free boundary of technology?
Really good question. I think it was Nick Noakes actually was asking Professor Lorillard about that, because I think that if I got this right, one of the comments that he made from the floor was, wouldn't it be good to set up a community not just within the university but across universities in Hong Kong? So that would be a way of building communities. I think though with the size of the community, if the community gets too big, then it's no longer a community, it's just too big. So it's that sort of happy number of people that belong to a community that can interact well, know each other perhaps a little. For example, the research in Facebook recently is suggesting that if you have more friends than 60, I think the magic number is 60, am I right? Anyone know that? More than 60 friends, then you can't handle the friendships. It's too much. Now, whether that's really true or not, I don't know, but that's what I've read so far. And so maybe in setting up communities, we can set up to a certain size, but then no bigger. Perhaps. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment.
No, I think that's a good point. I've heard that also about Facebook. You can't keep up with what all your friends are doing. Think also of your basic cocktail party. How many people can talk in a circle and feel like they're all taking part in that little community at that time in a discussion? 4, 6, past 8, I think you'll have people splintering off into subgroups. So there is a number at which the affordances support a certain size of the community. And it depends on the technology. So I think you'll see the community react to that technology.
Yeah, it also depends on the purpose of the community. So because if you're looking at Facebook, it's more like a social. But then, if you have a clear structure of a certain community, then you can manage, a few thousand. For example, the developer of Linux or Unix, their community of programmers is more than 5,000. But they have a very clear structure, and then they build a whole system, a mega system like that. But they are all from, different part of the world. They work together very well. I mean, they collaborate, and then they build a system. So that is another thing. I mean, for example, social is another thing. You can manage 5,000. But then if you have different purpose, that will be different. Of course, the structure is another thing. Then how you structure the activity, and then in the Unix or Linux development, then they have a different layer or levels of interaction in the community.
Great. Okay, well, we've run out of time now, so thank you very much for coming. Thank you for your questions. I hope you got something out of this conference. I hope you got something. One of my ex-colleagues many years ago called it the Velcros of the mind. What do you remember when you've left? So I hope you've got a few key things that you will remember after this conference. So look forward to seeing you hopefully at the conference next week, which is the CETL conference, which will be going on for the whole week. The following week we've got the ICT 2011 conference as well. Hopefully we'll see you there, but if not, look forward to seeing you in the site seminars that we run regularly every month or so, and indeed next year at our next symposium. Thanks very much. Bye.